What's up, fellow lords of gaming, and welcome back to another episode of Marvel Future Revolution. Today I want to jump into a really quick conversation about Omega cards, and that's specifically Omega cards for Wolverine. So let's talk about this. Okay, so it's hard to suggest Omega cards to a general audience because Omega cards is where your character gets definitively defined in terms of how you want to play that character. You're also looking at using your Omega cards as a way to flesh out stats and bonuses and things like that that you specifically want. Now, most players will categorize their Omega cards into two different areas, one being PvE and one being PvP. So let's take a look at that really quickly by taking a look at the newest Omega card that we have, as what I take as like part of the 7th year anniversary, or like it's the pre-anniversary card, in my opinion, is what they should have built it as, especially because it has Omega Flight on it. So this should technically be looked at as a pre-anniversary card, right? This card is a great card because it comes with attack stats, right? Now, so essentially the way I'm looking at the card is that you can see there's attack stat value over here, and then you have bonus stats. This card comes with 3 additional bonus stats. One of the stats being inside here is defense pierce. Then we can see supervillain damage decrease, critical damage decrease, and then exclusive stat for Wolverine being HP recovery. Now, where the card is not aligned is in terms of our defense pierce and our supervillain damage decrease, right? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me to have supervillain damage decrease and defense pierce on the same topic on the same card, because more than likely these aren't going to help me. Right, like defense pierce and supervillain damage decrease is 2 specifically different, distinct areas of the game. Right, like I'm essentially looking at that card and going, I need to get rid of one of these stats, or I need a stat of a different caliber, more or less, depending on where I want to utilize this card. I want to make sure that that stat is aligned to that. So like if I'm going to be playing supervillain, which I don't really want on my cards anyways, but if I'm going to have supervillain damage decrease, and I would like to have villain damage or any PvE related stats, whereas opposed to if I have defense pierce, then I want stats like crit damage decrease and things that are going to be beneficial to me, or PvE increase, stuff like that. They're going to be specifically utilized for PvP. So that changes up the nature of the card. Now, Wolverine has a couple of exclusive stats that I specifically do want on his cards, and that is most likely going to be HP recovery, his cooldown decrease, and then his defense pierce stat. Obviously, I probably lean into that defense pierce stat if I need to max out his defense pierce, and I lean into those HP recovery stats as like an overall, along with the cooldown decrease, essentially what I'm looking for. So that card right there, the Future Revolution card, is a pretty decent card overall. Like you see like a card like Captain Marvel, and immediately this card is identifiable as like a PvP oriented card, right? Because I'm getting PvP damage increases, and then you can see I'm like getting dodge rate. So a really good use of this card might be to say, I don't want the HP recovery. I could still use the HP recovery on the card, but I might want defense pierce on this card more, or I might want the cooldown decrease or something like that that's going to help benefit. Like this is not typically a card that I would just leave inside my PvE, other than me just trying to arbitrarily flesh out the cards that I currently have for the character in order to arbitrarily ramp up his numbers basically across the board. But this is clearly a PvP card, right? Same thing with like my Doctor Strange card. This is like a cooldown decrease card. This card is perfect for probably like a PvP card because I get the PvP damage increase. The dodge rate is usable across both, but it's going to be more beneficial to me more than likely inside PvP. So the cooldown decrease is going to be beneficial to me, which allows me to open up the room to basically either choose to double up on more cooldown decrease, or basically go HP recovery and defense pierce. But I get to choose in that regards, right? Whereas opposed to I look at like my Star-Lord card here, and I've got attack, I've got PvP damage increase, I've got dark guard damage decrease, and I've got defense pierce. Clearly a PvP oriented card. So probably in my deck for Wolverine, I would put my Star-Lord and my Captain Marvel card in my PvP decks. I would put, you know, my Omega Flight cards right here. Well, realistically, I would put all 3 of these cards inside my PvP deck, and this one right here I would look at re-rolling to fluff out this the card in the proper way, so that way I either have like an attack, either have a PvP or a PvE card to get the most of those stats and effects. Whereas if I was to look at something like, Crossbones having that critical damage, that max damage rate, and even the PvP damage, yet not so bad in and of itself. Inside there, my back to basic cards, you can see here, this would be this card is totally thrown out of itself, because we've got fixed effect and defense pierce, which is leaning towards PvP, but then we get a bonus stat that leans into super villain damage, and that becomes even more isolated, right? Because the super villain damage is going to be something I need for fucking Dark Zone, and then I've got my exclusive stat inside HP recovery. So I'm going to change up the way my cards essentially play. Like, for instance, one of the cards I seem to routinely get in this game, and I don't know why they hammer me with so many of these cards, is my Doctor Strange card, right? So I end up with super villain damage decrease quite a bit inside of here. This is a Dark Zone related card, right? And then I automatically think about that in here. I get my defense pierce stat on here with more super villain damage decrease, and then I get PvP damage decrease. So this card essentially begs me to re-roll it. Now it's at 4-star, so I don't have to worry because these bonus stats are more than likely going to change. But I'm looking at the PvP damage decrease over here, and I'm like, yeah, god damn it, I've got to re-roll this card to make it so that way it's HP recovery or cooldown decrease, so that way I actually have PvE. That's where I want this card to be at, right? Not inside this might be a Dark Zone set specifically for me, where I look at my Storm card, however, and she's got PvP damage decrease, PvP damage increase, dodge rate, and cooldown. This is 100% hands down PvP card, right? That's where I'm going to utilize that card. My Iron Man card, I get villain damage inside here. This is a PvE related card, so having a defense pierce and even probably the critical damage decrease, I'm looking for those stats to re-roll to be something different. I definitely don't want a PvP damage decrease stat on this card either. This realistically needs, well, it's kind of weird because I could really still use this for Dark Zone, and when you're in Dark Zone, you're doing PvP. And that's where this game distinguishes itself from a lot of the other games that are out there, is because the stats are so strung out. And so in the fact that we have to invest in these different dynamics of the game, where it'd be like, well, I'm just jumping inside this game mode to specifically do PvE, or just this game mode for PvP. I then have other modes like Dark Zone where I'm doing PvE and PvP, so I need a fair mix of stats that are going into this. Or I don't give a fuck about the fighting that's going on in DZ, so I'm just going to straight up focus on the super villains, and that's all I'm doing, which mostly is what Dark Zone has boiled down to anyways, right? So that's essentially how you're looking at your cards. So it's really hard to tell you what you should be investing in overall, because then you're looking at cards to try to mitigate those stats. Now, you can also look at some of the other cards that are in the pools of cards to see what it is that you want to do inside here. But basically, some of the stats that I would look out for Wolverine is going to be things that have attack, things that have crit damage, crit rate, things that have ultimate gauge recovery and HP recovery on them, or HP. I think those are going to be highly beneficial to a Wolverine build. I think I remember Tony Bing brought up one card that I was like, I wouldn't necessarily throw that card on anything that I'm using, but that's just me. I'm like, I'm gonna throw as much special cards as I can at this thing to make it do what it do. But if you had to, like, you see like Future Imperfect has ultimate gauge recovery, but I'm only gonna get one bonus stat on it. So am I gonna utilize this card for that ultimate gauge recovery and lose out on an additional bonus stat that I'm gonna get from a special card that's having two? I don't think so. Like, that's just, I'd rather. It all depends on how invested you are inside that ultimate gauge recovery. Now, for Wolverine, he does have two cards that he's got there. Defense Pierce clearly is going to be suited for his, PvP role. And he's got X-Men, X Lives of Wolverine, which is attack, which could end up either way, right? Depending on what the sub stats you get and what the exclusive stat becomes. That way you can re-roll it. But I would like to believe that I'm going to get something that's going to be, a lot more beneficial. So like we see the fixed effect over here is that, and the bonus stat on that card would basically be defense pierce, PvP damage increase, max damage rate, total damage, or super villain damage inside there. So depending on how you were leaning with this card, maybe I want more defense pierce to just stack that up even more. Maybe I want this to be this is a defense pierce card, so it's a PvP. So the other stats would be here. As long as I don't get super villain damage on that first bonus stat, then I'm looking pretty good. Whereas opposed to bonus stat number 2, I've basically got a dodge rate, critical damage decrease, PvP damage decrease and guard damage decrease. As long as it's not super villain damage decrease, I'm really cool. And then Wolverine's, like I said, his stats, HP recovery, defense, pierce, cooldown. If I get a card that's going to specifically be for PvP, then I want to get, then all of these stats are really good for Wolverine. They're just largely dependent upon what you need to fill out and round out your stats, because where you might sit in your cooldown is probably different than where I'm at in my cooldown, or where my HP recovery is at is different from where you are in your HP recovery. Same for all the other stats. So it's hard to imagine, you know, telling you what cards to go for. The good thing about the X-Men Wolverine cards that are currently out is that inside of the workshop, we actually have the ability, everybody's going to have the ability to at least get one of those cards, right? So that's going to help you start gearing up your Wolverine for whatever, you know, you deem fit for it. Because if I come inside here for the adamantium crafting, I can look and I see I got a 4-star Wolverine special card box, and I'm going to either get a 4-star Wastelanders Wolverine or a X Lives of Wolverine that's going to be able to be acquired. Now, the sucky part about it's a chance at getting one of them, right? So you could end up doubled up in here, which really sucks. Now is the reason why I said that I'm going to try to roll for that card and hopefully roll into the adamantium special selection box first, because that way I can get these 4-star special costume selection boxes, just because, you know what, it's not bad to have those special costumes, especially if you're just working towards that for the late in game if you're not a whale. Or I could get the 4-star special card selection box, right? And this is why I said that I won't go for that, because guess what, it's a 4-star special card selection box. That means that I can choose Wolverine, one of the Wolverines, instead of getting an option at one of those, right? Especially if you've already been lucky enough to basically roll into one of the Wolverine cards. Or you can just right up go for a 6-star core or a 4-star special companion selection box. You can't turn down special or selection boxes are the better ones overall. With them making this a special card selection box, and it's only 4,000 more tokens than what the Wolverine one, I wish they would just, especially since it's 4-star, I wish they would just made this one a selection box as well. You know, recognizing the fact that some players are probably going to just roll into one of these cards inside the Omega draft event anyways, and they were going to get that. So, you know, hard to say, hard not to say. And I know there's going to be a lot of players that want to just roll right into Wolverine, Magneto, if they find him that important, because you get a 3-star fucking Magneto 5 times. That's a lot of shards. You're basically looking at a 6-star Magneto from this event. This is the reason why I said this is one of the best events that we've had hand downs in this game, period. And I'll continue to say that because it needs to be said. It's the one reason why I haven't spoken about the squad battle system yet, because I wanted to give you guys as much positive as possible. And that's all the positives about Omega War, about Wolverine inside of series. So I hope you guys are enjoying him. I think that he has a huge fan base, and I'm hoping that that fan base brings players to the game, and that they're able to experience the game in this current state, because this is what we need going forward. You know, not having delayed transmutation for new characters, so that way we can roll into them, and not having the inability to get those characters to a ready playable state. Because at the point that we're currently in the game, you know, when I hear players say it's easy to get to that max level, and I'm like, that's bullshit. Tell me how many characters you've got that are over 1.9 million, which is, you know, right now, if I used Invasion, 1.7 million is basically the cap, but I need 1.9 million to go through battle challenges, right? So if I'm looking at battle challenges overall, the state of this game for me to get here to get a 4-star special costume box, right, is that you basically have 1.9 million to do that power. You know what I mean? So when I'm looking at that is the state of the game, to say, how many characters do you have at 1.9 million? Because that's the basic soft cap of the game currently right now. Not the hard cap. That's the soft cap of the game right now, is that you have a character at 1.9. Now, gratefully, I will say that I was able to, with the majority of just the rewards that they gave in this update, reach a power level of 1.35. So I'm close to 1.4. So that says to me that all they're asking me for at this point is invest a little bit of money, so that way basically you can get to 1.9. And we basically got 400,000 power difference level, give or take, between players, 400,000 to 500,000 power for you to get there in order to do what you're going to do. whether that's you getting your costumes to 6-star, or you getting nano fuse costumes, or you getting to level 120 and hitting 120 badges inside here, and that now improves you to like 1.5. And the difference in makeup is you going inside the shop and utilizing some of the tickets that they gave you from the event, and then deciding you're going to top off on some of the special offers that they have at good prices. These are not good price special offers, just so you guys know, stay away from these. But they did have some earlier good offers, and even like, for instance, the good offer that I specifically talk about inside here, the Wolverine Celebration membership, is a really good offer that they have inside the game. Even if you go in there and you purchase off some of those, and they can guarantee that they're getting like, you know, $50 to $100 a month from individual players because of events that they're passing like these or something like that, even if it's just $20 a player, that'll be good over the life of the game. But where we're at right now, or where we're at prior to this event, where $44.99 and $80.99 are the basic entry prices for those things, and we're not getting rewards that are rewards in abundance that are helping us get characters to playable states, we're losing retention of players. So I really like where they're going with it. I really appreciate what they've done with this character specifically, because this character is the one character that in my mind in the game has go-between between all of the game modes and has viability, whether you're building him out for blitz, raid, PvE type invasion events. In that regard, playing events like Spec Ops and Invasion might be a little bit different because he's so oriented towards just single target DPS, but he'll succeed probably in Blitz, Raid. He'll really exceed inside Omega Wars, Dark Zones, squad battles, and stuff like that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Are you ecstatic about Wolverine? Have you switched over to him, or at least started building him? Until next time, guys. Peace.